Now, I'm actually cashing out my investments, not because I want to take a portion to actually enjoy my money, to be responsible and actually try to take out some of the money and live off of it, or lastly, to actually cash in on some profits and make them real, not just have them on paper. The truth is, the reason why I'm cashing out a portion of my investments is going to be because I need to diversify. And by the end of this video, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But for the most part, I literally have a lot of money in stocks, and you'll know exactly the ratio in this video, but it's almost a little scary. Not because I don't trust stocks, but because the way my life is set up, if things don't work that well with the stock market, I might be in trouble. Although I'm really diversified as far as, for example, stock investment. You'll know more details in this video, okay? So just keep watching. But do me a favor and smash the like button. But the very first thing, guys, is Tommy, if you take out your money from the stock market or a portion of it, what are you going to be putting your money into? The answer is into real estate. Now, I gotta be honest with you guys, okay? I absolutely hate real estate investments. I don't like them at all. You probably never heard somebody on YouTube actually say this out loud, and I've never said this on YouTube myself, but I have said this to like one person. I'm just not a big fan of real estate because of the maintenance, because of the tenants, and also the un-passivity when it comes to real estate investment. Real estate investment, anyone. All right, wait. So, un-passivity is a word that I invented. It does not exist. Do not use that word in public because you will be shunned. But what I mean by un-passivity is passive is something that just kind of comes. Un-passivity is the opposite of that. It's opposite to passive. That's all I'm saying. The un-passivity when it comes to real estate investment. Real estate investment, anyone that actually does it and does it on a really good scale or even on a minor scale would tell you there is nothing passive about real estate. My stocks are passive because I just send money over, I leave it, it grows. I can take money out later in years to come. I have a great track record, but there is no me dealing with maintenance. Something broke down, or just, for example, natural deterioration and remodeling of a property, or having, for example, a good tenant, or having a great tenant that ends up leaving, or having a bad tenant that ends up destroying the property. These things happen, but real estate overall, it's not a passive activity, and if I don't like it, then why am I considering investing into it? Guys, as an adult, as you probably know, there are a lot of things that we actually have to do because we have to do it, and it's not just all based on likes and getting to do what you want all the time. So the reason I'm investing into real estate is because real estate contains three things that I actually appreciate out of it. First of all, it preserves my capital. If I buy a home or I build a home, that capital is very unlikely to actually diminish in value a large portion because real estate over the long term, the track record shows it goes up in value. Number two, guys, okay, it grows my capital, which is basically what I just said, but preserves my capital, but my property, which has my capital, will grow in value over time. And on top of that, lastly, I get to cash flow, which to me is super important. And it's one of the main reasons why I'm actually doing this. If I was only worried about capital preservation and growth of capital, I would just stay in the stock market. But I'm also largely worried on cash flow. Because you see, I can have a very predictable idea of how much I'm going to be receiving in rents because basically rents are almost like fixed in a way based on where you're actually living. And if things do get ugly, you could always lower the rents, but you always have an idea of how much you're getting. It is a difference in the stock market because you could have 100K today invested in a great mutual fund or index fund, and tomorrow you could go through a massive shift. It could be worth 50K, and now because you're only taking out a fixed amount of money, let's say like a 4% return, you go from taking out $4,000 every single year, $100,000, to taking out a lot less because now you only have 50K. And if you take out more, it's going to damage your investments. And what I'm really looking for is consistency as far as income actually comes into play. Why? That's super important. The answer is, it's almost obvious. The biggest The biggest thing when it comes to investing in the stock market is time. It's not the amount of money you have in and the return. Yes, it matters, but it's going to be time. Especially when you're investing, for example, into index funds, what's going to make you successful is time. So when you're trying to invest money for like 30, 40 years and you have a large portion of your net worth invested in the stock market, and by the way, 90% of the money I have available for invested is actually invested in the stock market. It's a large amount of my net worth, okay? So basically saying that time is going to allow me to build wealth via the stock market. And if I end up having, for example, like a hiccup with my income and needing cash from the stock market, and at the same time during that time period, the market is also down, I might put myself in a very blurry situation. So by having, for example, an asset that preserves my capital, grows my capital, and at the same time gives me cash flow like real estate, I can almost assure that, hey, I'm going to be continuing to receive this rental income to cover my income or my expenses, for example, to make sure that if I go through a hard time with my job or the stock market, I can keep withholding, I can keep patient and just let the market ride out what's actually going on with it. That's the main reason I'm so focused on investing into real estate. Now, what is my budget? And how am I going to save the money to actually do this? These two things are very important. Budget is based on your area, your location, obviously. And in my location, I have really two options, and I'm considering the latter. And the latter is this, okay? Well, I'll tell you what the two options actually are first. I can either buy or I can build. And I'm considering the latter because, what I'm looking at here in my area is that basically when you are buying a property, because people here kind of like build out their own homes all the time with their own little custom designs, they're not that great. And sometimes the size is not that great. And when you're actually looking to buy, for example, like an apartment, they're expensive, okay? And when you actually run the math to actually see exactly what your return is going to be, it's pretty trash. So what I'm seeing is that if I could buy some land, I could actually build out, for example, like a duplex or a single family home. And what's actually in fashion right now is for people to actually build out apartment buildings. I'm not trying to save up for years and years to actually be able to do that because, again, I'm trying to do this without any debt. And if I ever do take on a mortgage, it'll be a reverse mortgage where I'm basically putting in, for example, like 80% of the capital and the bank might be putting in 20%. I'm trying to pay it off super fast. But then, with the closing costs and all that stuff, I'll probably be better off just waiting. So it really wouldn't make sense. But my biggest thing is I'm trying to do it without any debt. And trying to build out a whole building is too much money. You know what I mean? So some people are basically building out the first two apartments and making sure the architecture supports, for example, more apartments above. So they kind of build out the first floor, they wait a few years, build out the second floor, wait a few years, build out the third floor. Am I trying to do that? The answer is not really. I'm not really interested in having a whole building or whatever. But what I am kind of interested in is basically buying some land and potentially having a single family home there or having a duplex there. And I don't see a lot of that here. I do see single family homes, but they're rare when it comes to rentals because people usually grab them or people just are basically trying to buy and build personal properties to live in it themselves. So if I'm actually doing that where I have a duplex, I have two incomes, I have also two different people with two distinct incomes, and this way, if one doesn't pay, the other one's going to pay. If there's a hard time, I can kind of say, all right, I can kind of lower the rents or whatever, and I have two sources right here, and the cost wouldn't really be that much difference to actually building it. Actually, it would be pretty significant potentially. I can't really go into detail because I don't know the overall price. I can tell you land here is around like $20,000 to $40,000. So that's the main thing. Now, where is the money going to come from for me to actually be able to save up the money that I actually need to save? Now, again, I don't want you guys to think that I'm actually not willing to buy an apartment or a single family home outright. If I do find an opportunity that can actually get me a 6 to 8% cap rate, I will actually do it. Basically saying, if I can have a return on my money of 6 to 8%, I will do it. All right. I'll be fine with that. It'll be more than enough. But I'm not going to buy a property where I'm basically making 3% and I'm basically having my money and my capital eroded by inflation. At that point, it doesn't make any sense. So I would actually have to buy a property for at least a 10 to 20% discount of its value, and then based on that also be able to make around 6 to 8% as far as cap rate. And to do that, it takes a lot of looking at different properties, all right? So where's the money gonna come from? The answer is, well, I plan on basically, I have some savings, okay? So a part of it is going to be my savings. A part of it is going to be continuing to save for my income. I plan on actually setting aside around 20% of my income. I also have a CD that generates for me some income. I have money that I basically set aside to build my own personal home or buy my own personal home that I'm not going to touch, but it does have a CD. So basically I do get income from that. I'll grab the income from that. I'll basically save it for this purpose. I also have some stocks. So from the stocks is where it comes in, right? Here's where the money from the stocks comes in. I'm going to grab my dividend for my stocks and also a 4 to 5% withdrawal rate annually to be actually able to save up for this. Now, I'm almost guessing, if everything goes well, I'll probably have in the first year around $80,000 saved up. By year 2, I have around, if I'm not mistaken, around $120,000 saved up. Now, if I'm actually able, let's bring out a trusty calculator here, because it is important to actually bring it out, okay? If I'm actually able to have $120,000 invested into real estate and I'm able to make, for example, a 6% return, that's around $7,200 every single year. Divided by 12, that's around $600. Now, if I actually make, for example, an 8% return, that's around $9,600 divided by 12. That's around $800. So $600 or $800. Now you might say, Tommy, that's not really a lot of money in passive income, is it? The answer is it all depends if you have controlled expenses. Believe it or not, me living on my own, I can basically live a very good life on $1,200 per month. If I get married, God willing, I'm probably gonna raise that with kids to like around $1,600 per month because my cost of living is so low. And because I also plan to have money set aside to actually buy or build my personal home, then I don't have to worry about paying a mortgage. I don't have to worry about renting anymore. So that's a big part of my income that I don't have to worry about. So that's a big reason why this math actually makes sense. Now, let's say, for example, Tommy, how do you see this actually playing out? The answer is pretty simple. I see myself going through around 2 to 3 cycles of this, okay? So if I'm actually able to do this 3 times, okay? And I can make $600 times 3, that's around $1,800, right? So that's a lot of money for me at least because I don't have a lot of expenses. Now, once I have that, I have enough room to say, hey, my rents can cover my expenses, what I actually need to live. And the stock market can do the same, but if the stock market crashes, I don't have to worry because I have my rents, all right? So that's the idea. So I'm grabbing my money from the stocks, and it's not like I'm cashing out my capital from stocks. Very important to know that. I'm taking a portion of the profits, 4 to 5% annually, plus my dividends, and I'm using that money to save it and invest it for real estate investment, which I'm not a fan of, but it is a very good capital preservative and also capital grower, and also lastly, good source of cash flow. I am doing it in cash, so I don't have to worry about the risk of potentially losing what I already have. And that's my entire idea, and that's my entire plan. All right, guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, like it. Got comments, comment up here is another one, and peace.